Today on The Social. Much ado about nothing. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau turned heads with his choice of footwear at the King's Throne speech. Was this appropriate? And do angels wear Prada? Anna Wintour says no one is scared of me. We debate whether you need to be intimidating to maintain authority in the workplace. Then, from florals to old school charm, baking and decorating trends that take the cake and deserve center stage through party season. Plus, Dr. Sheila fills us in on upcoming changes to the cervical cancer screening process and what you need to know about HPV testing. It all starts now on The Social.
Everybody, this is how you start a Wednesday. Welcome to The Social. Joining us today, Executive Director at The Walrus, Jennifer Hollett is back. Welcome,
Good to see you, baby. Nice to be back, thanks.
So the story that a lot of people around the world are talking about today, Justin Trudeau, he's back in the news, y'all. He's especially got the British tabloids talking over the shoes that he picked for King Charles's throne speech yesterday. Some are saying that the brightly colored sneakers were, quote, disrespectful. So were those shoes not fit for a king? What do you think, Andrea?
I think that you can wear a suit with running shoes if you're 12 years or younger. You know, when you're going to like an event like a wedding, right? And you have a little boy who doesn't have the attention span and you know he's gonna run around. He's allowed to wear the running shoes because you know he doesn't have it. A grown man, I cannot tell you how I cannot stand a grown man trying to casual a suit. Put on the dress shoes. The shoes are flat, my dear. I'm wearing 4-inch heels. What's your excuse, Justin? You're going from comfortable to more comfortable? Put on the shoes. I think I'm going to agree with the British press, and I don't often do that, but it was very disrespectful. I think at big events, especially like this is the throne speech. No one from the British family had been there in decades, and you're putting on your sambas? I feel like this was not the time or the place, and as a former prime minister, I know you have a team of people, so whatever you needed, someone could have got it for you.
It looks good. I think it looks good.
No.
It looks comfy.
No.
He was elected as a Generation X prime minister. He was booted out. He's showing up looking comfortable and very much like his peers.
I think you're right.
What next? A distressed T-shirt underneath the jacket?
Maybe.
Oh,
Maybe.
Jen!
The thing is that like he's certainly not the first person on Capitol. What am I saying here? Parliament Hill, thank you.
Or Capitol Hill.
To show up in sneakers. This actually was a trend that was started during the pandemic. A lot of leaders came forward in Canada and said, hey, we're done with this sort of like super constricting footwear. And women were doing it too. Chrystia Freeland was putting on sneakers. She might pop on the heels at some point and like, you know, she had to do a press conference. But like, I think this was the tone. He's no longer our prime minister. I just think most people just kind of want to crap on him, even though he's no longer doing the role. Let the man live. Just let him live.
I agree. And also, I just find it a little bit rich that the British press has anything to say about our former leaders when your former prime minister was named Boris Johnson. Enough said. Anyway, that's a whole other story. He purposely made his hair look like that, which was a point.
They all do, though. This is becoming like Donald Trump. There's like a look with these leaders with the blonde hair and how they style it.
But do you think that this is a signal to where he's going next? As you said, he's not the prime minister. He doesn't owe us like anything anymore, to be honest. The world crapped on him. The country pushed him out. He has every reason to just be like, I'm gonna do me now because I'm no longer in this role. And could it be a nod to the fact that he's looking to his next act? If you wanna look for Justin, because by the way, he's been underground since he was pushed out, just look for him on his young son's Instagram and TikTok feed because he is signaling to us, you know what? He gets to be a dad again. He's missed out on a decade of his kid's life. Look, he's wearing a hoodie.
I wouldn't be surprised.
We're not talking about his modeling
hoodie.
skills. We're just saying you're going to a formal event, sir. Put on a proper shoe.
No, but he's
That's
giving
all we're
us a
saying.
signal.
I'm glad you're a good dad. We
He's
love
giving
what
us
you
a
did.
signal as to where I think he's going
He's
next.
getting
And I
lazy.
think that, I think that he can absolutely do whatever he wants now. He is no longer in the formal role of prime minister.
Yeah, I think so too.
Whatever he wants, so he can show up in like shorts and a tank top at the next throne
There are
speech.
4 things he would never show up in a dress.
When we
distressed
say he can do
tee.
whatever he wants, it kind of opens the
No,
door. I
listen.
think that you got to pay attention to the dress code and adhere to the dress code of where you're going.
Listen,
I don't know if there was dress.
here's the
It is a
point.
formal event.
It's a formal event.
It was just sneakers. It wasn't a distressed tee, and it said.
Yeah.
It starts with the sneakers, folks. It starts with the sneakers.
It actually started with his socks. He was known for colorful socks,
Yes.
and he's been known to always play it up a little bit. So it's not that far out of range for what he's known for.
And his son may have very well bought him those sneakers. And also,
Okay, hold on. He's not that out of touch.
no, he has. His son.
Not that
No,
out of
there's a
touch.
story where he's shared that there was a pair of sneakers that he wore, and his son gave them to him as a gift. So that might have been a nod to his family. Who knows? Also, has no one of you ever shown up at a formal event
No.
and forgotten something? Never.
believe you. I
Well, you're
believe
all
you.
better people than me because there's another piece of the story that we might not know. It's perhaps he showed up there and he forgot his fancy shoes. What are you gonna do?
Okay, say that happened, but this is a man who has, he has a team. If we have a team, he has a team.
I don't know.
So if he has a team, someone could have gone, you know what, I'll give you my shoes. You can wear them for the next couple hours. So I'm not letting him
We're
off.
all entitled to our opinions.
Put on your proper shoes,
We're
grown man.
entitled
All right.
to our
shoes.
opinions.
Yes.
To our shoes.
To our shoes.
And put on your shoes unless you're 12. All right, so next one. Drake.
That's political commentary.
Yes. Drake confirmed OVO Fest will be back this summer for the first time in nearly 3 years. Given all the recent anti-Drake sentiments this year, Jennifer, is this a welcome return for him?
So Kendrick Lamar and the ongoing feud has to be brought up right away in this conversation. This question is coming to Toronto for 2 big shows at the Rogers Centre. And I looked into getting tickets for my niece. They're quite expensive. They're just about sold out. So he has to follow up with something. He can't just let Kendrick come through Toronto and take 2 nights. So to me, this is like just an obvious next move. I do think, though, there are a lot of people who are liking Kendrick more, even in Toronto, even if they're thankful for what Drake has done.
I like the way you're looking at me. There are other people on this panel.
Other people. I mean, how are you
Listen,
feeling?
I will say this much. I have never attended an OVO Fest, but that's not a hit on OVO Fest. I think it's fantastic. The timing is great. It happens in Toronto during Caravana weekend. For those of you who don't know, it's a big Caravana carnival festival, a big parade. Thousands of people come to the city. The timing is great. He's had wonderful guests show up and perform, much to the delight of lots of his fans, and I think it's great. But I will be at June 12th, I will be at a particular concert that is featuring one Kendrick Lamar. That will be me on June 12th and 13th. And, Justin Bieber just popped up at the first concert in LA. So maybe Justin, since it's happening in Canada, he might pop up again. But then there's the whole Drake thing. Is he going to show up for Drake or is he going to show up for Kendrick? He can show up for both. We can like both.
Because
I'm
I
not
do
touching that
think
one.
it's about who Drake is going to bring on stage.
Yeah, I
and
do
it's
too.
about a
Yeah.
larger festival. And Canada needs more festivals now that we're out of COVID. So I
Yeah.
think the return of the fest is
I think
welcome.
this timing
More
could
concerts is better.
He has to do no matter how you feel about him, Drake is a Canadian icon, and I don't care what. And that guy has done a ton for this country. He's brought let's give him his flowers, right? Like it's this fight between Kendrick did drop a really amazing song. There's no question, but there was a tone in that song that was a little bit about not only like that. I can't help but think about it in this spirit of Canadian pride that we're all going through right now. Not Like Us was referring also to the fact that Drake was from Canada. He was separate. He was not like us being American people. To me, there was a subtle undertone of that. And I think right now we're experiencing this moment of national pride. We should be reminded of the people who've done incredible things for this country. Drake is included in that. I will not be at that unless I get an invite, but because I don't go to these types of things. But I'm happy that this is happening. I think we should all be happy for him. Yeah.
It will be this year. Will be the 15th anniversary, so I think there's something very symbolic about that he has done so much for the city. And what he created with the first OVO Fest that I happened to be at was the tradition of there's going to be some surprise huge guests. And if I can go back, I love OVO Fest. I love what it does for the city. And I went to the first one. Matt Babel, who you may know, he was my co-host at CP24 Breakfast. He's like, Grelo, you need to get down here. I said, I'm coming. First OVO Fest. So he had Rick Ross there, Fabulous was there. All of a sudden, the song Forever comes on, and then some artist comes on, and then another artist comes on. Oh, wait, is that Eminem? That was OVO Fest #1.
Wow.
And then who followed 2 seconds later? It was Jay-Z doing Run This Town. So this is where the tradition started of like, you bring in huge names. The question will be this year, who does he bring on?
Who can he?
Because a lot of people
Who can
joined
he?
Team
So we'll
Kendrick
see.
during that feud. A lot of his
Yes.
friends were on Team Kendrick. So it's going to be very interesting, but I'll be at Kendrick. I'll give you guys a rundown.
It's going to be fabulous.
We're gonna be watching.
Welcome, Drake. We've missed you. Welcome back. Welcome back. After the break, she may be the inspiration behind The Devil Wears Prada, but Vogue editor Anna Wintour claims that no one's scared of me. That's what she says. We're going to be talking about intimidating bosses. Do you got to be scary to be a good leader after this?
Tomorrow on The Social, coordinated looks with minimal effort, matching sets to pick up for an easy breezy summer. Next week on The Social, forget bad hair days. Learn how to find the perfect hairstyle for your face shape. Expert tips from stylist Jason Lee.
Welcome back to The Social, everybody. If you'd like to come and visit us live here in the studio audience, you're going to be in the Toronto area. We would love to have you here. So simply scan the code that's on the screen right now with your camera and your phone. The tickets pop up. We would love to see you here live.
Yes, we have a good time here.
We do.
Always. Yeah.
Okay, despite being known as the inspiration behind The Devil Wears Prada, Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour told Page Six that no one is scared of her at the magazine, apparently. So do you think, though, that you need to be intimidating to maintain leadership or authority when you're running things? Interesting. Mal, what do you think?
Intimidating or fearful. It's funny because we're talking about a big generational thing here. I think for a certain generation, I'm Gen X. I think most of us are Gen X. We were raised by tough parents, tough leaders, tough teachers, tough everything.
I hear a quiet clap in the back there. There's some claps that want to come out.
It's how we were raised. Tough was good. Tough love was a term that people used all the time. That's how you're going to raise a good kid, tough love. So we maybe have been raised to be able to handle or respect that kind of boss today. I respond very well to that. However, you also cannot raise the generation today, the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas. You can't raise them for their generation. When we were raised in a very different time, we got to raise them for their world. And their world is very different than ours. I have a girlfriend who runs a huge company, and she has a lot of young people working for her, a lot of young millennials and the Gen Zs. I can't tell you who she is because every day she says someone is crying in her office. Every day someone's crying in her office. Why? Because someone talked very harshly to somebody in the office and they don't like it. And I'm not saying this to put down Gen Z. They have been raised really differently than us. They have been raised that just showing up is enough. We were raised that you don't just show up, you turn out over and over and over again. This generation,
Hold on, but Gen X is raising them.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Yeah.
we are guilty as the helicopter parent generation. We have done a major disservice to the young people today.
I don't know.
We have.
I was a manager for a time in my career. I initially started out as a producer and all of a sudden got an increase. So suddenly I was in charge of the same people who were once my colleagues. This was a really hard position to be put in because suddenly these people who I consider my friends, I would go out for lunch with and drinks with and whatever, I had to manage them. And for the most part, almost every single person on my staff was extraordinarily gracious about it. They had an intrinsic work ethic already. I didn't have to be on top of them. But there was one or two people of that group who saw an opportunity, I think, and put me in a very difficult position where I had to be questioning certain things of like, where was that money gone? Where was this? And in fact, it ended up in one person ending up being let go. And that was a real learning lesson. I still take away from that, my managerial or leadership approach was to be kind, was to be generous, was to assume the best of my staff that I mostly chose or trusted, had seen their work ethic. But there would be two people. But I don't think that means that you should, that leadership then needs to come down with an iron fist. Because again, 90% of the people were respectful with me being kind.
So I'm an executive director of... I'm the executive director of The Walrus, and we have a print publication. And, you know, this stereotype of, you know, the intimidating editor-in-chief, that exists throughout the industry. It also exists in TV newsrooms. Like, this was, I would say, the norm for a lot of leaders, managers, directors in the 80s, in the 90s. It's definitely changed because to run a media organization in this time, you really have to play to the strengths of your team. So for me, the approach I take is I want to create, develop, and support other leaders. And the best compliment is if I can leave a meeting, if I can get out of the room and no one notice it because other leaders have stepped up and are leading. So I think the goal of a leader is actually to create more leaders.
Can I poke a little bit?
Sure.
Have you noticed this shift in the younger workforce coming in, requiring different things out of you, or you having to modify for them?
Yes, and I would say it's probably the most popular topic when executive directors are talking to each other. But I also think it's on us as leaders, as managers, to teach people who are new to their careers how work works in 2025. Because it's very different than how work worked for their parents. It's very different than when they were in school during COVID and trying to figure things out on screen.
All really valid points, but sadly, I think that you do need to be a little bit intimidating to your staff, especially if you're a woman, if you're a woman of color, if you're young. I think it does help you. And I've seen in many different, I've worked in a lot of different places, and as much as everybody can complain about their boss, the one that that everybody's afraid of, everybody works a little bit harder because no one wants to get in trouble. No one leaves early when they're a little bit afraid of the boss. They actually stay a little bit later because they want the boss to see that they're working really hard. So there is something to it. And I worked on a show where I had a bunch of young people who weren't that much, I wasn't much older than them. And I wanted to be their buddy in the very beginning because I'm like, yeah, I understand, I speak the language. And I quickly realized that I did not have the respect of any of them, and that I had to channel my mother and be like, okay, everybody listen, no, you're not. And then all of a sudden I was getting the respect. All of a sudden now they're doing their job, and I'm like, it's interesting. People say they don't want that, but in reality, people they react more to the person that they're a little bit afraid of. So it's nice to say we don't want that intimidating boss, but my experience, we work a little bit harder. We pay a little bit more attention.
I wonder if there's a distinction, and that's fair. I would just say, and I know we have to move on, but I wonder if there's a distinction between being clear and firm and having boundaries and people knowing what's expected of them, and if they are disappointing you, you tell it, versus being like this kind of what we had the impression of Anna Wintour from the Devil Wears Prada.
A devil.
A devil, exactly. And we've all had the devil bosses too.
I've worked with a person like that.
You might produce better work, but at what cost?
How many years? Not in the long term. You're out of there fast.
That's right.
It's short term. It's short term with fear.
And you're stressed out. And I think there's a fine line between intimidating and terrifying.
That's right.
And some people just don't know that line. So it's
because there is a line out there that people don't quit companies, they quit bosses. Anyway,
So, all right, so let's move on to another hot topic. Everybody loves Hugh Jackman, right? Well, we found somebody who doesn't. It's his ex-wife, Deborah Lee Furness, who was throwing cold water on his good guy image, telling the Daily Mail that their split is a profound wound that cuts deep. And her heart is with everyone who's been through a traumatic journey of betrayal. So, I know that's a heavy statement. What do you make of this statement? Jennifer, I'm gonna throw this one to you.
Well, I think she's trying to get ahead of something because this is strategic, right? When you are high profile, you have to issue a press release with the divorce. So there's something going on that she wanted to be on the record for. We don't know what that is, so that could be deeper pain. Maybe she's aware of something that's gonna be out in the press. So I think for her, hopefully that helps her in her journey, and the record is set straight.
I mean, he has already come out with a new girlfriend, so that's, I mean, they separated 2 years ago.
That's why there's something prompting this statement at this moment.
Maybe things are getting ugly with the lawyers or something like that, or maybe it's being in her face. I feel like whatever it is, she's in her feelings right now, and that's understandable. She calls it a great betrayal. betrayal, and my heart goes out to anybody feeling that. No
Well,
one
we know
should
what
feel
that means.
But at the same time,
It's code language for she thinks he cheated?
Well, yeah, betrayal means like, like
she's
cheating.
found out some
Or you said
details.
you were gonna be with me forever.
Yeah.
And you lied, and now you have a new, young, hot girlfriend that I just saw the photo of you guys holding hands in New York City, and I'm mad.
Yeah.
So now I'm talking to the tabloids, because let's be real, during their 30-something year relationship, they never leaked any kind of, have you guys ever heard a story about Hugh and his wife? Nothing. So I agree, I think it's hurt feelings, and I think you can break up with somebody and be fine with it until you see them move on. And then there's something that's
Or there's more to the story. Time
there
will
might be
tell.
more.
Or you
There
find
might
that there was
be
an
more to the story.
overlap that they weren't honest about. Who knows? Good luck, Hugh.
I mean, he's a man. He's a man in Hollywood. You know what that means? Nothing's going to hurt him.
He'll
So
be fine.
let's move on to our next break. When we come back after the break, why many teens today are pumping the brakes on getting their driver's license. It's just not happening. We're going to try to dive into why is that after this. If you have a 16-year-old at home who's blasé about getting their license, you're not the only one. According to Young Drivers of Canada, the average student is now over the age of 20. 20. Jennifer, are we going back and showing our age that we could not wait till we turned 16 to get our license?
I grew up in St. Catharines, Ontario, and it was the minute, because in a smaller town, it meant freedom. Also, your parents are like, yes, please drive yourself to work in your activities and to your friends. And then also, if you were older, like I had a friend who was born in January. Oh, that was sweet. But I actually think this is great. The longer that kids can hold onto their skateboards and their bicycles and go walking and spend some time, with public transit, if available to them, why not? I do think driving is a life skill, so I would encourage younger people at some point to get their license, because we still live in a country that's dependent by cars. That's how we get around. But I was renting a car last night because I don't own a car. I have a driver's license. And I was on the highway thinking, I was driving on the highway at 16. I mean, it is quite
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, it's true.
Quite the task.
To me, it's interesting because I love that you have a positive spin on it, because I actually think that it is a symptom, not the problem. I think it's a symptom of something larger that is shifted with the young people. And I think it is, in general, some of it is good. I think there's environmental awareness. They're not rushing out to get cars. If we can take transit, there's Ubers, there's all this stuff. There's alternatives. But I also think it's because they're not leaving their homes. I actually think what's happening is something bigger, which is arrested development. Kids are not transitioning into adulthood the way that we transition into adulthood.
They're just like this,
So what
right?
was
They're just
it,
like,
right? They're here.
Well,
I mean, on the one hand, listen, they might be speaking with their friends. They don't have to run to Johnny's house if they could talk to Johnny on the phone. The problem is they're also not getting outside and moving their bodies. And so to me, I think this is symptomatic of something larger, which is we had rites of passage that made us move from childhood to adulthood. Getting your license was one of them. And I think we have delayed adulthood for many reasons. And I think one of them is they're not getting out of the house.
I don't know. You might be right, but I feel like there's always been some people who didn't get their license. And I mean, I'll be honest, I did judge some of those people at one point in time. Like one of my closest friends, her partner, life partner, he's a very successful businessman, and he doesn't have his license. And they broke up temporarily a million years ago, and I was like, remember, he doesn't have his license. I kind of used it as a, he's a bad...
I love the gender flip on that.
But now it actually
flip.
is lovely. He's super successful. He's super happy. He lives in the city. He doesn't need it. I don't think it impacts his life in any way. And I think maybe normalizing this as a choice and not like a character flaw, I think would be a good thing. It would be good for the environment. It would be good. Again, it's not going to work for every city, but in a city like this, we want transit to get better. And the only way it's going to be is we have less cars on the road.
Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing that a lot of these kids who aren't getting their license are still looking for their parents to drive them to and from places, and they're also using Uber. And personally, as a grown woman, I don't want to be sometimes, and I'm not saying there's a problem with this particular driving service, but I wouldn't want my teenage daughter in that car with that strange person going from place to place. So it's interesting that they're not getting their license, but they're leaning on other things. But it reminded me of the story that I just recently saw. There's an online course called Adulting at the University of Waterloo that is booming because these 20-somethings realize that they're in university and they don't have basic life skills. Probably driving is one of them. Listen to what they're learning in this class. How to navigate a grocery store, laundry, how to make real meals, not just ramen, and right? And there's a bunch of other basic things that we're all laughing because we knew how to do these things before we ever got into post-secondary education, but these kids are not, and they're blaming it on two things. First, the high schools aren't teaching these things, like simple things like how to sew. They don't have those classes anymore. And they're also blaming the helicopter parents who are too busy doing everything for their kids. So you got a kid who's 20-something years old who's like, I can't drive, I don't know how to sew, I don't know what to do in the grocery store.
But also ramen's
And that-
tasty. Ramen's tasty.
Well, you gotta have something else in your
I didn't know how to do anything when I went to university. I
Really?
did not. I hadn't done my laundry for myself.
gosh.
And my mom was not a helicopter parent. She just kind of did her own things. She didn't teach me some of the
You want to
things.
hear?
'Cause you're a last
You don't want to
one.
hear my
But I
laundry story?
figured it out.
At
I
11
figured
years
it
old,
out.
At 11 years old, my mom goes, "Come downstairs. Can you touch that button?" And it was on the washing machine. I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Okay, let me teach you about separating whites and colors." 11 years old. So I wish.
Having a single parent, I was raised by a single mom, that also does it because you start learning those skills earlier. But I know some adults who should also probably take that course.
You know what? You're probably
Jen,
right.
I gotta jump
right.
in here. Jen, we mentioned this off the top. You're the executive director at the Walrus. You're hosting a really great event happening tomorrow night. It's Thursday, May 29th, 7 p.m. Eastern. Can you tell us about this event?
Yeah, this is the Walrus Talks, and it's on the power economy, which is actually taking a look at electrification. So how can we build transportation, but ultimately our country in a more sustainable way? And I think this would have been a bigger election topic if we weren't also focused on Trump. So that's in Toronto tomorrow night at the Isabel Bader Theatre. It's also available for free on live stream. So check out thewalrus.ca for more.
That's great. Oh, Jennifer, great to have you back. Thanks for your perspective. on
I always
everything.
love these chats.
Thank you. On the other side of the break, everybody, we've got cake from edible florals to vintage throwbacks, trendy ways to sweeten up your summer. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, finally, the warmer weather is on the way, and that means that party season is upon us, and you can't have a party without dessert.
Yes, and here with the trendiest cake ideas for all of your summer festivities is baker, cake artist, and cookbook author Susie Gazzaloni. Hi, good to see you, my friend.
Hello.
Okay, we gotta ask. We're looking at some art here, so I need to know, where did this whole journey of cakes begin for you?
This has always been a part of my life. Baking, I started baking when I was a young child with my mother, and we would do it on Sunday afternoons, so it became kind of our ritual. And then throughout life, without knowing, when I was stressed out or in my anxiety, I was always turning to baking. Rewind 12 years ago, I was in a job that I did not enjoy, and it wasn't fulfilling for me.
Did you like your boss? Just kidding.
Yes!
Just kidding.
I know you were choosing your words very carefully.
I'm gonna tread lightly on that one,
yeah.
but I said basically goodbye banking, hello baking.
Wow.
Well, let's get into it because this table looks incredible. And
Thank
we're starting
you.
with a classic summer look, and we're talking about florals. Talk to us about this trend this year.
Floral everything.
Okay.
Just like fashion, this year for summer cakes, anything flowers is perfect.
Okay.
So I'm talking like edible florals, flattened blooms, like dried up blooms, buttercream
gorgeous.
petals.
It's so gorgeous.
It's so beautiful. It's such a garden-inspired theme, and I love it because it allows you to really get into it and create and just really embrace the beauty of summer. Right?
Okay.
When you think
Love it.
summer, you think flowers, right?
Yes.
So
I recently took a pressed flower art workshop, so I'm really excited about this first trend that we're talking about, which is edible flowers.
That's
So
right.
Tell us about this stunning
it's right
cake.
there. So
Yeah.
this one here, so
we can eat these flowers?
you can eat those. So that's,
Wow.
you'll probably know them as sugar flowers. So they're a form of edible flowers, and they're hard. They're made with gum paste. It's almost like a fondant.
That's good.
It's like candy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it actually hardens. So it allows me to paint on it and add the gold and these little intricate elements and more of the detailed look. It'll allow for that.
Okay.
I normally don't recommend you eating it.
She tells me this after.
Sorry, I didn't want to stop you. Just because.
Am I gonna die? What's
you
happening?
will not die,
Okay,
girlfriend. You
okay,
will not die.
okay.
Just because they're handled more. I mean, I wash my hands and
But
everything.
you
so
handled it.
I handled
Okay,
it,
I'm
so
fine
you
with
are
it.
good.
I'm fine
They
with
are
that.
infused with love.
Okay, that's good.
We're good.
Good.
So as you can see in these ones here, these are the dried up flowers.
Yes.
And that's what you girls are gonna sample today.
We can eat
Okay.
this one. We can eat.
Okay,
You
these are
can eat that.
actually
I
dried
did not
flowers.
manhandle that one.
Okay. Are we eating that? We're gonna eat those flowers?
Yeah, you
Okay, okay, I'm going in. I'm going in.
It doesn't taste like anything.
They don't
taste
Those
like
killer
anything.
can't.
It
Those
tastes
killer flowers
like
are much
a
better.
light little film, like just like super
there's
light.
there's not much taste.
There's not
in
much
it,
to that. Yeah.
No.
yeah.
So the second technique is called painted florals. Is
that what you
That's
just
right.
showed?
You just did that?
So this one is actually this cake right here. And this is basically painted floral. So it's with a palette knife. And it's basically out of floral art. And what I'm gonna show you quickly is...
So you're telling me that that instrument can make this
This is
flower?
my favorite tool, to be honest. There's a bunch of different tools here.
Are you gonna do this live?
I'm gonna do it for you.
Oh, show us. Okay.
Let's do it. And so basically you just kind of...
Oh, it's like paint.
something
it's
like
just
that.
painting.
It's like basically like
yeah.
painting. So
pretty.
art. Yeah.
Love that.
Beautiful.
So that's
We
what
love that.
is.
Now, this cake is not just floral on the outside. There's also a cake with floral on the inside.
Yeah, and that's a huge trend right now. Anything floral, so including flavors as well. So we're talking vanilla cake with a lavender buttercream filling.
Okay.
Are we eating?
Can I try
spring,
that one?
summer. And that's what we're tasting today.
Oh, you're using a fork. You're such a lady.
And so that gives it that nice fragrance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a beautiful hint of lavender. Oh, I
Right?
love it.
It's not overpowering, it's soft, it complements it very well.
Oh, it's so,
So-
good.
I'm curious. What are the events that these cakes are popping up at?
So right now I'm seeing a lot of bridal showers, baby showers. It's sacrament season, so baptisms, confirmation, communions, a lot of those
That's
events.
so good.
Yeah, they're just, and even garden parties. And we were just talking about that earlier. Like,
Yeah.
why not have cake at a party? What a perfect
Every party needs a
opportunity,
cake.
right?
Everybody needs a cake.
Everybody needs cake.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's move
Thank
on
you.
to the next trend. The next trend is vintage revival. What does that entail?
Honestly, this is my favorite trend. I'm so glad it's back. It's kind of inspired from the 1950s to 1980s. It's all about the oversized piping, like the grander, the better. The more frilly and swaggy you get, the better it is. And you see this a lot in weddings.
Okay.
So these are popular wedding cake, but also birthdays. So you'll see them more as a one-tier cake for a birthday.
And what did you bring for us to taste today?
Lemon love, my
Lemon
favorite.
love. Okay.
So a little bit of
Right?
lemon and filled in with raspberry. That's what you'll be seeing.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so good.
I'm going.
This combination
I know there are forks, but
is
I'm
incredible.
diving in.
Yeah, I know I brought you the fork for formality.
I like
but-
that one.
And you
a
know what I
lot.
love? You can write little messages on these cakes. So at the top, there's a little message that says love. Like, so there's different things like happy birthday or...
This
Oh,
is
I
so
love
good.
It's just like a modern twist on
Perfect
like a
combination.
vintage
And
style.
it's more is more. It's a more is more trend.
Exactly, exactly. You want more.
The last trend we're doing is the exact opposite of the more is more. It is the elevated simplicity.
That's
so
right.
how did you achieve this look and what kinds of events are you seeing this pop up at?
So simplicity continues to be a trend. It's been a trend for a while now. And you see this more in weddings. When you go to a wedding, there's a lot going on in a wedding. And I always say to my couples, like, you want your wedding cake to kind of summarize the whole wedding, but in a very like simple format. So you got the clean cuts, the clean lines, the tiered fondant, and then you add a velvet bow or
Okay.
ribbon, and that adds that.
We're already in tasting this one. Does it have a hint of coconut? What is
That's
this?
coconut
Oh,
with
we're going to the next
coconut
cake?
filling. Yes.
Oh my gosh, it is so...
Nothing screams summer and tropics like. Yeah.
It's
Every cake gets better and better. Oh my gosh, that is so good.
I'm loving you more and
Oh
more.
my God, it's so good.
I'm just curious, how do you get that fondant so smooth?
It's my OCD combined with my perfectionism, and I'm in there.
Okay, so listen, how else are you seeing the elevated simplicity of this kind of cake show up? You said some weddings, et cetera, but where else?
I would say more of that. Like you can still do it for actually sacraments or baby showers or weddings, because some brides like very simple looks. So something like this is a great opportunity, because what you can do is you can actually do the reverse, where you texturize the tiers. So let's say you use buttercream. Buttercream's a big thing, and then you just add a simple, delicate flower on it.
Yeah.
Done.
That's it.
And it looks
Because it
beautiful.
speaks for itself. More is less is more.
more.
Sorry.
Yes.
Less is more.
Yeah, or more is more.
Or more is more.
We like all
And
the
that's
cakes.
like, this is the season to embrace it all. Embrace all the flowers, but you can also embrace simplicity. There's nothing wrong with
I
it.
just want to know the taste we have embraced, the looks. These are absolutely stunning top to bottom, inside
Thank
out.
you.
Thank you.
Delicious.
Thank you.
Wow.
All right, up next, Dr. Sheila is here, and after the break with important updates about cervical cancer screenings in Canada. You don't want to miss it. Stay where you are. I don't know which one's my favorite.
Oh my God.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, cervical cancer is increasing in Canada. If diagnosed early, however, the 5-year survival rate is 91%.
Yeah, it's good. And fortunately, there are big changes coming to the screening process in Canada, and Dr. Sheila Wijayasinghe is here to tell us more. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Sheila.
Thank you.
This is big. So, big shifts are happening in screening for cervical cancer. What's new?
So we are shifting in many provinces from Pap testing, which is classically what looks for changes in the cells of the cervix to detect early changes, over to HPV testing, which is looking for the virus that causes 95% of cervical cancer. So it's a much better test, and it's really important that we're making this shift because it is just really a way that we can do early detection to support our patients to get those cure rates that you mentioned, Andrea.
All right, so why are we switching from Pap test to HPV testing?
So quite simply, it's a much better test. So Pap tests pick up about 50 to 70% of abnormalities. HPV tests pick up about 90%. So it is a better test. And it's really important because, as you mentioned, you know, cervical cancer rates are going up in our country. And we know that over 50% of those cases are in people who have never been screened. And so we need to do a better test to be able to accurately pick this up to prevent these changes from happening and turning into cancer.
That's so great. So what does this mean for someone who's going into their regular cervical screening?
So it looks very similar. So right now at this time, it's still like a Pap test where we are doing a pelvic exam, inserting a speculum, looking at the cervix and doing a sample.
Yep.
So it looks very much the same, but the goal is that eventually it's gonna switch over to self-swabbing. So it'll be much more accessible for people who may struggle with those exams, which many people do struggle with this test, which is really important.
Wow.
Okay, well, okay.
Yeah.
Questions. We have so many questions. Okay, self-swabbing instead of the doctor doing it. When is this going to be available? How does this all go down?
Yeah, so it's already available in British Columbia. British Columbia tends to be ahead of the rest of the country in terms of women's health initiatives, and it will be coming through the rest of the country. Now, some provinces have not done HPV testing yet in terms of what they're offering, so Pap testing is still available there, and it's still a good test to get done. Now, we'll see this coming through, and how it works is that we teach our patients and we instruct them on how to do the test. It's not a difficult test. It's a swab that you insert into the vagina, and then you swirl it around, and that is it. And for people who cannot do Pap tests because of the discomfort with the speculum exam, this is a really great option.
Wow.
Okay, it sounds very convenient and it sounds wonderful, but is there any concern about patients not swabbing properly and not getting an accurate test result?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So in Ontario right now, we're doing a pilot project to make sure that it's an accurate test. We know from many studies that it is a very accurate way and self-swabbing is very effective, but some patients will prefer not to do it. They want me to do it for them, and that's okay. That will still be available to them. But there are, you know, the concerns are is it as accurate in terms of getting to the cervix?
Yeah.
It does seem to be very accurate because the liquid still contains the HPV virus if it is present.
Okay, fascinating.
Wow.
Really fascinating. So how often do people need HPV testing compared to Pap smears, and who is eligible for this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So because it's a more accurate test, Pap testing currently is every 3 years in most provinces and territories. This is now going to be every 5 years because it is a much more accurate test. Now, the caveat to that is that if you have immunosuppression, because you know HPV is very common, and how it works is that it is a virus that many of us will have at some point in our lives, but our immune system clears it. If your immune system is suppressed, you may have struggles to clear it more. So if you have a transplant history, HIV, or other immunosuppressive conditions, it's important to do the HPV testing more frequently every 3 years.
Got it.
And so it's different depending on that. For people to do Pap testing or for cervical cancer screening, I'm still used to saying Pap testing, it's for people starting at age 25 and it goes up to age 69.
Wow.
Okay, so if you test positive for HPV, and I did in my 20s, should you be worried?
So great question. Anytime you get a doctor's call saying you have an abnormal test, it's understandable to be worried, but HPV itself, the presence of it, does not mean you have cancer. HPV, again, is very common. 80% of adults will have had an infection with HPV at some point in their life if you've been sexually active. But it's like a cold. Our body recognizes it and clears it for the majority of cases. For those who have persistent HPV infection, this is where the concern lies. And why, if you do have a positive HPV test, I said this is good for us to know this because we can intervene before it progresses into changes that will lead to cancer. And we will refer you to see a colposcopy specialist, so a specialist who will look at the cervix under a magnifying glass, basically, and make sure that we're detecting those changes quickly before something sets in that becomes cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, great information. Listen, this is all great. But Dr. Sheila, can we talk about the pelvic exams for a second?
Sure.
They're a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. Legs up here and your doctor's telling you to relax. You're like, I can't
Your
relax.
legs are up
My
there.
legs are out here. Any tips for us before we go in for one of those exams so that we can make it a little bit easier on ourselves?
Yeah, you know, this is a routine exam, but it can be very uncomfortable for people depending on your own personal history. If you're in postmenopause, it can be uncomfortable because of the vaginal changes that happen. So what I suggest is always, you know, we can use a smaller speculum and use ample lubrication. When I started medical school, we didn't use lubrication because we were told that it interferes, and now we use lubrication to make it more comfortable. Bring a support person if it's possible, if you need that help, using calming. I play music for my patients sometimes if they have struggles with this. And then you can always ask to stop an examination. You have every right to do that in the doctor's office because it's your right as a patient. And if it's uncomfortable, we stop. There's no urgency to do a pap test. Yeah, so we can do that. And if you have menopausal changes, you can do treatment beforehand with vaginal estrogen treatment for a few months, and it feels much more comfortable. And then we're not causing trauma to our patients when situations that can be very uncomfortable.
That's
So
incredible.
good to
I didn't know.
know.
You guys know that? I didn't know that.
Can we talk a little bit about the HPV vaccine, how this fits into this conversation?
So it's really important. So this is a cancer preventing vaccine. And in Australia, where the vaccine has been taken up and people have had a high vaccination rate, cervical cancer has been eliminated. So we can do this if we are vaccinating appropriately.
Wow.
And it's really incredible. So, and also HPV doesn't just cause cervical cancer, it also causes oral cancers and anal cancers and warts. And so the vaccine is really important because it prevents these different things beyond just cervical cancer. And so we can give this vaccine up to age 45 in Canada is what it's approved for. You can give it beyond that. We assume that you've been exposed at some point in your life if you've been sexually active, which is why that cutoff is there. But we do start it in our teenagers to be able to protect them before they become sexually active and protect them as well as we can.
It's so good. Well, we have about 30 seconds left, but what age, if parents are watching right now, should they consider getting their kids vaccinated? And is it both boys and girls?
Boys and girls, absolutely, because boys can also get changes related to HPV, and grade 7 or 8 across the country within the school system, it's offered. And so I encourage parents to consider this because this is the way that we can prevent kids from getting cancer in their adulthood. And it's so important. It's a safe vaccine. I recommend it for everybody. And this is a way that we can make such an impact in our kids' lives.
Amen.
Information, Dr. Sheila.
Look at that. Science works. Look at that. Dr. Sheila, we love how you break this down for us in such an approachable, relatable way, so thank you. Great information. Wow. All right, everybody, we're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Everybody, next time on The Social, stretches to relieve menstrual cramps. This impacts a lot of women out there, so it's going to give you stretches to help you out. Also, where to go to get a matching set that works for any occasion. Stylist Erica Work is back tomorrow. And I got to tell you, I love me a matching set, y'all.
Right?
It's the easiest hack in fashion.
Yeah, and then you can separate the pieces afterwards, wear them differently.
never
But
do.
do we ever separate? We
I've
never
done
separate.
it.
Well,
I've
Erica's
worn the
gonna show
shirt
us how.
She will. She will.
She's going to show us how.
Do it. You're missing out.
You're missing out if you don't have a matching set.
What are you doing with your life?
It's true. Listen, thank you to all the guests that were here today. We're still buzzing over them. Thank you all for being here. Catch us on Crave, catch us on YouTube, catch our podcast. See you next time, everybody.